Have you ever had one of those moments, or maybe a whole series of them, that were so unlikely, so perfectly timed, that you just had to stop and wonder, was that really just random chance? Well, today we're diving right into that super thin line between pure coincidence and what some people might call a much bigger plan. And we're doing it through one absolutely incredible story.
So our source material kicks things off with this huge question right up front: coincidence or divine orchestration? It literally promises a story that unfolds against all odds. I mean, that really sets the stage for something pretty remarkable, doesn't it?
But at its core, this isn't just some abstract philosophical debate. This is about a deeply human experience. It's about what happens when people are dealing with the most unimaginable kind of loss, and then they're suddenly confronted with something that seems, well, statistically impossible.
And that brings us right to the heart of this story. It all starts with a group of mothers who are brought together by a tragedy that no parent should ever have to face. And from that came a search for connection. So you have this small, pretty informal group of mothers that get started. They're all trying to figure out how to navigate the grief of losing a child. But they weren't just looking for support. They were trying to understand what the source calls the inescapable concept of connectedness. What on earth does that mean? And, where was this journey going to lead them?
See, their search wasn't just about finding comfort. It was a hunt for proof. Proof of something. A sign? Maybe? A message? Really, just some kind of confirmation that the powerful connection they were feeling wasn't just all in their heads. They really wanted to believe. Okay, and this is where things start to get really strange. Because this search for proof, it leads them down a path filled with a series of events so interconnected, so improbable, that they've been labeled synchronicities. Now, what's fascinating is when you get into the specifics. We learn about these mothers, Amber, Christy, and Sarah, who had all lost children. Amber and Christy shared some images, and what happened next was this unbelievable cascade of discoveries. To date, the source says that a growing number of these grieving mothers have all found what they believe are images of their deceased children, all within the exact same set of documents. It all started with this core group of three, just three mothers. They actually call themselves the Sister Mamas, and they were the first ones to report finding images of their children in the same place. The source presents this as the first powerful piece of evidence that, maybe, something more than just chance was going on here. But here's the thing. It didn't stop at 3. Not even close. Soon, that number grew to 6. According to the research, at least 6 different mothers, all working independently, identified what they believed to be their lost children in the exact same documents. With every new discovery, the idea that this was just some simple coincidence started to feel, well, a lot less likely. And this leads us to the absolute crucial point that the source material makes. It states, point blank, that the probability of this happening by pure random chance is negligible. That's a huge claim, right? It's basically challenging us to look for any other explanation besides coincidence.
So, if we take random chance off the table, like the source is telling us to, we're left at a major crossroads. Is this just a 1 in a billion statistical fluke? A crazy outlier? Or do we have to seriously consider the alternative? That this is all part of some deeper plan?
All right, let's break down the two possibilities here. On one side, you have coincidence. That's just a bunch of amazing things happening at the same time with no real link between them. But on the other side, you have orchestration, this idea that these events were actually guided, intentionally pulled together by some kind of unseen force.
And the source itself gives us a little hint about where it's leaning. If you look really close at the cover image, right there, among all the random-looking elements, you've got Scrabble tiles spelling out a single word, plan. That feels pretty deliberate, right? It's like a signal that we're about to explore the idea that none of this was random at all.
Okay, so if it's not a coincidence, then what is it? Well, the source doesn't just leave us hanging. It puts forward a whole theory, one that's built on this one profound, massive idea: interconnectedness. And the entire theory, the whole thing, hinges on this one foundational concept: the survival of consciousness. This is the belief that our awareness, our personality, everything that makes you, it doesn't just switch off when our physical body dies. It keeps going. It continues to exist in some other form.
So here's how they connect all the dots. The theory proposes that these mothers were brought together for a reason: to heal, and that they were actively led to these specific images. And get this, the images were obtained months before any of the moms even started looking. So for the source, there's really only one conclusion. This points to the survival of their children's consciousness, actively orchestrating everything from, well, beyond.
Now, at this point, you're probably wondering, okay, who is making these claims? Where is this all coming from? And that's a great question. It's super important to understand the organization behind this research to really put it all into context.
This material comes from the Institute of Advanced Research in Instrumental Transcommunication. Now that's a mouthful, but it's basically a field dedicated to studying communication with, well, with consciousness that has survived physical death, and they often use electronic devices to do it. Knowing that this is their focus, it helps us understand the lens through which they're interpreting all of these incredible events.
So in the end, whether you look at this story and see definitive proof of a divine plan, or you see a profound example of the human mind desperately seeking patterns in the face of grief, it leaves us all with a pretty heavy question. How do we find meaning in the patterns of our own lives? And when we're faced with the impossible, what's more human? Searching for a rational explanation or finding comfort in one that defies all logic?